Donald Trump did it again. He got Canadians to lose their collectivist little minds. Hi, I'm Brian Lilley, political columnist for the Toronto Sun. It was late on Monday. Donald Trump took to Truth Social and announced something no one was expecting. He was really angry at Canada. He's upset that we've been taking advantage of the United States for years, and we're going to sign a deal with China, which will eventually take us over. The U.S. will pick up the scraps, and the Stanley Cup will be no more. What does this have to do with anything? This was all part of a rant that Trump had about the Gordie Howe Bridge. He said that this was allowed to go forward in an unfair process. Well, not really. This is something that took 20 years to get to. It started under previous governments, several governments prior to Donald Trump, several governments prior to Justin Trudeau. Prime Minister Stephen Harper was a main proponent of it that got it going. And then in 2017, Donald Trump joined Justin Trudeau in declaring it a vital project of infrastructure between our two great countries. But now, as it's about to open, he's saying it's taken unfair advantage of the United States. And he said on Truth Social that he would not allow it to open until America was given everything it was owed. Essentially, he wanted an ownership stake. He wanted to be compensated, says there was no American workers, no American steel. And, well, what happened here in Canada? People lost their minds. People started freaking out online saying, see, this is why we can't have a trade deal with Trump. We need to ban the American imports. We need to cancel the F-35 contract. These are the emails I'm getting. These are the comments that some well-respected people in the political intelligentsia are making. The same people that say Trump is taco, which means Trump always chickens out. So on the one hand, we've got to freak out over what he says. On the other hand, he always chickens out and changes his mind. Here's my advice. Relax. Take a breath. Wait 48 hours before freaking out, because half of what he says on Truth Social doesn't come to fruition. And the other half, well, it doesn't work out quite like he said. Do you remember when he was demanding that the U.S. be allowed to take over Greenland? That never happened, and he walked away happy. You can look at him saying that he would put extra 10% tariffs on Canada after Doug Ford's Ronald Reagan ad. That never happened. There's a lot of things he says on Truth Social that aren't going to happen. Now, look, politically, some people like this, especially if, let's call them liberals, because they know it gets the elbows up crowd going. They know that the elbows up crowd gets really angry. They want to rush to the border and defend the country from the imminent American invasion. And Mark Carney's poll numbers go up. But I'm going to give Mark Carney some credit here, because he came out on Tuesday morning and was calm ahead of the cabinet meeting, telling reporters that he'd had a talk with Donald Trump. They had a phone call, and he explained things to him, including the fact that it wasn't just Canadian workers, Canadian steel, and a Canadian con job on Americans that got this bridge built.
We discussed the bridge. I explained that Canada was paid for the construction of the bridge, over $4 billion, that the ownership is shared between the state of Michigan and the government of Canada, and that in the construction of the bridge, obviously there's Canadian steel, Canadian workers, but also U.S. steel, U.S. workers that were involved. This is a great example of cooperation between our countries. Look forward to it opening. And what is particularly important, of course, is the commerce and the tourism and the voyages of Canadians and Americans that go across that bridge.
So kudos to Carney on that, but I will say that this will help him and his election chances if he decides to go for that spring election that he and his team are clearly laying the groundwork for. I'm not saying they're going, but they want the option to go in the spring if it will help them. And this blast from Trump clearly helps. And if you look at the latest polling data from Abacus, well, they asked Canadians, would you support any of these three options for an early election? One of them was just a generic majority. Give somebody a majority government, force political stability. And the vast majority said yes. Then they asked, what about allowing Parliament to reset because legislation can't be passed? Majority said yes. And then, what about a Carney government, a Carney majority government? If that was the excuse for the election, would you support or oppose it? 50% somewhat or strongly supported that idea. This clearly helps Mark Carney and the Liberals. So Donald Trump, once again, could be helping the Liberals get back into power. Just remember all this. As everyone is freaking out, when Trump does this, it helps the Liberals. But also, when Trump does this, there's a good chance that it's not going to come to fruition. Stop overreacting to every single outrageous statement that the American president makes and wait a moment, take a beat before reacting, and go from there. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment down below, share this on social media, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.